Hello, I'm Scott McLean. I'm the CEO and president of Transition Metals Corporation, a company that trades on the TSX-V under the symbol XTM. We are a project generator. We're involved with about 25 projects in Canada, about 6 different jurisdictions. And we've now created a business format where we are a sustainable business without a requirement to finance over the next number of months.
Scott, thanks very much for joining us. Not met or spoken before, so I appreciate you coming on the show. In fact, I saw one of your guys yesterday, Grant, was on here talking about SPC nickel. Interesting one. For people new to this, maybe start off and tell us a little bit about you, your background relevant to what you're trying to do here.
Sure. So my background, I graduated as a geologist. I'm a professional geologist, professional geoscientist. And I worked for big corporations, primarily Falconbridge and Xstrata Nickel, for a good part of my career with great success. Our teams were able to generate a number of resources, including a significant discovery with which we got the Prospector of the Year award for. After having that success, I decided to leave big corporations, join forces with a couple of partners, one of them being David Elliott, one of the founders of Haywood Securities. And we formed Transition Metals to take our expertise outside for the benefit of investors and stakeholders.
Who else have you got on the team that's actually active?
Sure. So within the team, we've got a team of geologists. Most of us have worked together for years, many within Falconbridge together. That's where we kind of incubated our team. I'm the CEO. Greg Collins worked with me in Falconbridge. He's our COO. With the good geologists, worked all over the world. Tom Hart, who's our VP of exploration, and he's worked with big companies, junior companies, and government. I like to say about Tom, he's pretty well stood on every outcrop in Ontario, Canada. And now we've started to cultivate a younger crop of geologists with Benjamin Williams and Sarah Reese coming on. So that's a real tight, smaller team, technical team that's able to focus on generating projects and advancing them to attract partners.
Right. Okay. You're prospect generator. Not many people understand it or get it, and if they do, they feel it's just too long to be able to see some sort of upside, because from finding something through to it actually producing value, it seems an inordinate amount of time, right? That's what it feels like in the marketplace. So what I wanted to get at today is trying to understand how you create value. You've talked about having a sustainable business, right? But if I look at your share price, been at this a while, share price, where are we? 8-9 million today, fairly erratic pricing. Doesn't take a lot to move the darkest, not a lot of trading going on. So what's the big idea for you? How do you get people to recognize the opportunity of prospect generating? Because you quote people like EMX royalty, you quote people like Altius royalties, in your PowerPoint. So what's your big idea?
Right. So, I mean, really a traditional junior for the most part is a failing business model. It typically, we take these things back to day one. Over time, they do have some ups and downs in share price. Few of them have some significant discoveries. But generally, over time, they have to consolidate their share price and against the shareholders and restart the engine. They never go bankrupt because they don't take on any debt, but really they're not a viable business. By taking on a prospect generator model, you're really focused on discovery. And we do that by mitigating the risk. We don't need to go out and raise, do financings and dilute the shareholders. So a traditional junior generally has 1 or 2 projects. They advance those projects by taking selling equity in the company. That dilutes your shareholders significantly. And if they're successful, with the odds being 1 in 1,000 to 1 in 3,000, they can have a portion of a significant discovery. Whereas we have many projects, we like to sell interest in the projects rather than selling interest in equity. Therefore, we keep the shareholders' equity really tight. At the end of the day, we'll have interest in many discoveries, but probably minority interests or royalty interests. But through this process, we've mitigated the risk. We have numerous irons in the fire to be able to bring discoveries to our shareholders. So that's how the business model works in terms of your value proposition. Basically we are looking for a significant discovery, and it does take some patience. Through time, we've only ever raised $10 million. We've spent more than $45 million in the company now through by spending partners' money, and we're poised for discovery on a few of those projects now.
Right. Okay. So yeah, partners have spent 35 million. You spent 10. You're sitting at sub 10 million bucks yourself at the moment. How do I make money? That's what I want to understand, because you've got some cash coming in, presumably from management or operating fees, as and when, depending on which project. Once I suspect you've got equities which you can sell down at, hopefully at or near market value. And you make sure that you tell people that this is a sustainable business. I've listened to some of your interviews. So that's great for survival mode, but how do I make money? What was the upside for me as a shareholder of this company? The
upside for you is going to be you'll be involved in a significant discovery. Whereas other companies, a traditional model, that is a very high, low chance of being involved in a significant discovery. When you're involved in a significant discovery, you will be in multiples of your share price. And going out and spending money just to spend money to get to the next financing is not going to gain you a lot of value. So the investors are patient investors that have to wait for that discovery, and those discoveries are poised to be brought forward now.
But what does that mean? Is it because why are your projects any more likely to succeed than, say, an explorer's? Is it a numbers game? The fact that you can do prospect generating, have 10 projects, flip them on, or farm out situation, you get some cash, some equity, and if one of those hits, you're in the money. Is that the way it works?
Somewhat, but we're able to filter through them and focus on the best projects with the best commodity prices at the best time in the cycle. That's one of the things. We aren't married to any one project. We can prioritize projects. We're involved in 25 right now, and we can focus on the ones that are really kind of bring what we think from a technical perspective are going to bring value to our shareholders.
But how do you package that up? One, you're going to kind of package that story up, because you can only take it so far, because you're cash constrained in a way. It's not like you can spend money and blast it through to PFS yourself. You've got to get it to a certain point, get another interested party on board, and then they've got to go and raise some money off the back of the work that you've done, and you get a 20-25% free carry, and then, like I say, maybe a little bit of cash and equities as well. Is that the basic structure that you go for in each of these deals?
Typically, we do. We also have the opportunity to take a significant discovery forward ourselves. That's not unavailable to us. So once we are able to kind of go through that filter, pick the projects that are best to work on, do the initial work, which might take us through the first phase of drilling. We then can make a decision. Well, no, we want to raise further money to kind of keep this contained within the company, or we want to bring a partner in because the risk is a little bit too high for us at this time.
Right. Okay. So again, coming back to my earlier question, is like, what's in it for me? Is like say your share chart for the last 12 months is fairly, it's up and down. Not a lot of trading going on. So what is this more a kind of there are just big events, every 6 months, every year, every 2 years? I mean, how do you plan and phase that? Now, obviously, there's a lot of stuff not in your control, like the markets, like commodity prices, etc. But how do you plan for steady growth, which is very attracts people like me, versus these kind of slightly more erratic events every now and again?
Right. I think that's the key. We're not out trying to just generate stock. Mine the stock market, as the saying goes. We are looking and really focusing on real discoveries that contribute to society, that really provide that 20 to 30 times your money opportunity through a discovery. And by doing this project generator model, we're able to kind of really focus and mitigate that risk, so that we're able to get to that point quicker. But in terms of moving the company towards a more volatile share profile, that's not necessarily in the business model.
Right. Okay. So can you just take me through how you've got 25 projects, right? There's a lot. and you're going to move them all to advance them all to a specific stage, so you can offload them or farm them out, right? So how can you just help me understand the process for how you select them? Because you're big company mentality, Falconbridge, Xstrata, etc. As are most of the team. What was the relevant experience you brought from there to here in terms of the selection, in terms of the property acquisitions, and then how you move those forward, and when you move those forward, and how much money you spend on each of those?
Right. So, I mean, it's a data-driven process. We're all highly technically skilled in the company, taking the numerous databases that are out there, whether they're public databases, proprietary databases, databases that we have of our own, and put them all into one platform where we can compare various layers of data to generate ideas. Those ideas, then we generally like to pick them up through staking. That's becoming more difficult these days as some of the real significant camps are being staked up in this sort of bull market that we're in. But we are also working with prospectors, and we'll take on the odd option agreement to try and advance the project as well. So it's a real kind of methodical, systematic exploration approach that utilizes all bases of geoscientific data to generate the best projects.
Right, but I'm interested in the kind of profile, because there's a lot of companies we've interviewed, and it just seems like it'll do seems to be the mentality. It's enough to get us the ability, allow us to raise some money in the marketplace to see how it does, right? Whereas some of your projects are big. You got some big names working with you, allocating decent sized budgets. But as you say, things are getting tighter and tougher out there. So does some of that profile that you originally set out to look for, does that fall away and you have to, it's good enough? Well,
I think that's a really interesting point you bring up. I mean, our mentality is much more systematic, and we can afford to be systematic because we don't have to get that intersection that gets us that next financing in place. So we can really take the best of the best and do a systematic approach the way we would have done it if we had $30 million budgets in a large company. And we do it with a very small budget because we're able to focus where our attention is. Whereas in the other model, the other traditional model, I think there is a necessity to really get that real intersection. Whether it's really meaningful or not is a good question, but it is necessary to get you to that next financing, that next tranche of money that's going to allow you to kind of do your next bunch of work.
Right. And how much money do you allocate to an asset before you say, well, we need to flip this on because we don't want to go and raise the money to be able to move this forward ourselves, or we've done enough to get the interest in? I mean, what's that number look like? Because otherwise you can just suck up the money.
That's highly variable.
Yeah.
That's on a case-by-case basis. For example, we have small projects where we have that we kind of basically optioned out almost immediately without spending only a little bit of money. And there's other projects, for example, that we'll be working on this year. Those ones being Almer, Jolly, Maud Lake, which we are probably going to be spending about $500,000 on each of those just this year, and then trying to make that decision whether or not we're going to advance them to an option arrangement or do some more work on them. I think there's not a real average number. It depends on the project that you're working on, but I would say that typically we don't spend more than $1 million and often under 500,000 on a project.
Right. Okay. Of the 25 projects you've got right now, how many are active in the sense that they're either farmed out or they're spun out or they're going to be spun out?
Right. Well, we hope they're all going to be spun. We don't have any plans to do additional spin outs. We have spun out 5 projects into a company called Canadian Gold Miner. We've spun out two projects into a company called SPC Nickel. SPC Nickel went public. We were able to provide a share dividend back to our shareholders. We hope that Canadian Gold Miner will go public this year as well. In terms of active projects, we will be spending our own money on a minimum of 4 and possibly 5 this year, for 25. And we have option work being carried out on probably another, just taking a look here, another 5 projects.
Okay.
So of the projects we'll see active work on.
What was the dividend on the SPC nickel spin out?
The dividend was a share dividend.
Yeah.
You got one share of SPC nickel for every 10 transition shares held.
Okay. I mean, the SPC nickel, so that dividends 10 to 1 on the shares. What are they? 12, 13 million market cap, I think.
Something like that. They have about 120 million shares out at, I think we're around 12 or 13 cents.
Right. Okay. One to watch for sure. So, and what else? You think you're looking at spinning anything else out in the near future?
It's a great model to spin these out. It's difficult, I find, just to find the right people to kind of run them. We've spun out 2 right now, but the administration and the complexity of doing it is difficult. We do have another idea to spin out another set of assets, which I'll put in the future, but nothing in the works right now.
Okay, so Canadian gold mines next up, and then you're kind of reserving judgment on the rest. Do you think that's part of the problem with prospect generators? It's like as soon as it kind of reaches a certain stage, you spin something out or you farm something out, and 25% of something is better than 100% of something which doesn't work because you don't have the budget. But do you think people struggle with that concept?
The average retail investor may struggle with that concept. They're looking for a quick return, quick payout. It's a complex company to understand. We all, when we look at an investment, we do look at who the team is, and that's pretty easy. We look at their financials. So they don't have financial runway to stay sustainable. And then 3, we look at the project. And when you look at our company, it does become complex. There's a lot of projects in there, and there's a lot of royalties, the milestone payments, and it's a hard thing to actually put your thumb on in value. So I think that's probably one of the reasons we don't see a retail following right now. Until we get that big intersection, which hopefully will come this year.
So what does the register look like? How do you break that down?
The register is primarily retail. It isn't an institutional kind of play where you see a lot of financings coming out of it. But as I mentioned, I founded the company with an individual named David Elliott, who's one of the founders of Haywood Securities. So his book represents a fairly large portion of the register. We do have Sprott US Global has held a significant portion in the past with Rick Rule, and I just don't know how much they still hold, but they probably hold a significant amount as well. Myself and other insiders hold a fair bit. The rest is generally retail.
Right, but it's not very liquid, and I just wonder, what do you do about that? Can you do anything?
I think it can become liquid when we have significant discoveries, but there are large chunks held up within my own personal investments and so on. So there's still a fair bit of free trading shares out there, but I don't have a good answer for you on the liquidity issue. Okay.
Some questions sent in. People obviously interested in what's going on over at Sunday Lake with that Impala. Are they spending money? I know you have the free carry on to PFS stage, but what's the news? Because there's not a lot coming out of Impala.
Yeah, so Sunday Lake is probably one of our better discoveries. That's probably a very significant discovery on a worldwide scale. That mineralized zone now is probably 1,500 meters by 800 meters and open. Best intersection being about 41 meters, about 5.5 grams platinum plus palladium plus gold, with some very high grade intersections within that. So on a worldwide scale, it's a really important project. Since Impala bought North American Palladium, they've put this project into their subsidiary, Palladium Impala Canada, which is now focused on Lac des Îles and hasn't spent money on Sunday Lake last year. We're hopeful that they will this year. But more importantly, at this point, we do have interest in other very similar projects to Sunday Lake. Notably, Saturday Night is a lookalike to Sunday Lake. It's about 16 kilometers long strike. We have 100% interest in that project. It only has one drill hole in it that we drilled in the intrusion. It's a better discovery intersection than what Sunday Lake was like. It's identical in every way. And one of the projects which I'm really excited about is a project called Maud Lake, which is we think now is another mid-continental rift associated intrusions similar to Sunday Lake and others like the Clean Air Metals deposit. That project, we've just flown an airborne survey on. It's high tenor nickel at surface. We just flown an airborne survey, and we've got some great EM targets to chase down on that. We'll be starting work on that very soon. I think the end of May. We're going in there, and we should be drilling that this fall.
Okay, you referenced this earlier, the question I'm about to ask you, because if I look at Sunday Lake, you like it. You think it's got huge potential. It's PGM, which is, I guess, starting to get a few eyeballs on it, especially off the back of Russian sanctions, etc. And Impala, big name, big balance sheet, etc. But they can get distracted, right? There's they've got a lot on their plate. Things are prioritized, and then all of a sudden, budgets are removed from your project, which you need. Doesn't it say? And it's like you referenced it earlier that you're going to have to pick one or two projects of your own to stay in control, because you're out of control in that situation. Their decision making has got nothing to do with your needs and wants. So what are one or two projects that you think that you can focus on, that you can advance and move away from this prospect generator model and start becoming a bit more like the kind of EMX or the Altius that you referenced in the PowerPoint?
Well, I think the EMX and the Altius companies are not companies that simply take on a single project and advance it in a traditional model. That's not how they've been successful. They've been successful by evolving over a long period of time to have a bundle of royalties that start paying and create a sustainable business that has a measurable value. And that's where they've gotten to. In terms of projects that I like right now that we're working on, I mentioned already that Mod Lake project has some obvious drilling targets. We will most likely drill those ourselves before looking for a partner, if at all. So that's a good one to watch and see what comes of that over the next while. There are a couple of press releases out on it to date, but there's a lot more work to do this summer on that project. In terms of another project that I'm kind of really excited about is one called Elmer. It's in the Sudbury Mining District outside of the Sudbury Nickel Camp. It's a large breccia stock that's seen a lot of alteration, sodic alteration. We've got really good gold and copper numbers coming out of that, and some really interesting geophysical targets to drill at depth. Those are both two large-scale projects that, if we are successful in the initial phase of exploration, are ones that we can decide whether we want to kind of partner or move on and develop ourselves.
Okay, interesting. See, that's interesting. Like, I wasn't suggesting you become a one asset company. I appreciate the blended approach to the projects, but when you look at other stories like this, they've had to retain some control of some of their portfolio because other people's decision making can affect their business. So I appreciate that. So what are the things that we need to be looking at for this year? You got the rest, because it's a funny time for junior markets, junior companies at the moment. So what do you think are the moments that are going to make difference for you? Yeah, so you probably noticed we've had a bit of a hiatus in news flow over the last couple of months. We did have a fair bit through 2021. And now, as we move into the field season, we're hopeful that news flow will start coming forward, which will be things that you and your investors can look for. We will be doing field work on at least 4 projects, possibly 5, which will include Mod Lake, Thompson, which is in BC, Elmer in Ontario, and Jolly, which is in Ontario. And I hope to be able to be drilling on 3 of those, which will be Mod, Thompson, and Elmer. So there should be news flow coming out of that. We are discussing partnerships with other companies. There should be some option flow coming out as well. We look to see CGM go public this year. That will take our company stock holdings into a measurable market determined value that gives us some optionality with respect to whether we want to hold that stock, sell that stock, or dividend that stock. And we've got a strong project generation model, strong project generation program in place, and already starting to look to pick up new projects. In fact, we picked up a new one quite recently, which looks really excited, and you'll hear about that in the coming weeks.